Out of 145 podcast episodes, I have never had a male guest on this podcast, but I thought this topic was really important to dive in and talk about investment and money, and something that's hard for all of us to even talk about sometimes, right? So there's no one better than my own husband to talk about this topic, and I hope you really have some key takeaways today. So listen in. Hello, beautiful Redlo women. How are you today? It's Terri here, your coach and biggest cheerleader. I'm here to put a little bit of inspiration in your day. Welcome to the Redlo Women podcast, where we empower midlife women to reclaim their confidence, rise higher, and step boldly into their next chapter. And we do it together. I became a midlife entrepreneur after overcoming my own self-doubt to start this podcast, write my book, and coach women just like you. And I did it all in my 50s. I knew I wanted more after navigating my own life transitions, overcoming some really hard things, and trying to figure out what was next. As I did, I decided to help you do the same. So grab your warm cup of coffee or step into your favorite tennis shoes and let's step forward together. Let's go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Redlo Women podcast. I am so grateful you're here, and I'm very excited about my guest today. For the first time ever in the history of my podcast, I'm actually having a male guest, and that person is my husband, Scott Mullen.
Woohoo!
We've talked about doing this before, and we just haven't. So today we're going to dive in and actually talk about his background in investing, and we'll share why. But Scott has a really unique and interesting background when it comes to investing. He actually has over 38 years of wealth management and investment/portfolio management experience. He is currently working at Bell Point Asset Management with $6 billion in assets as a senior managing director of investments. He has worked at top Wall Street firms, SEC-registered investment advisor firms, also known as RIAs, with account minimums of $25 million. And he has also run and been president and COO of a complex $1 billion single-family office, also known as SFO, with 20 employees, which invested across multiple asset classes in both the public and private sectors. Whew, that's a mouthful, right? He is both a Harvard Business School and University of Virginia alumnus, and I'm so proud of him. So if you understand everything I just said in the bio, woohoo, you get that investment lingo, hats off to you. Or if you're a bit like me and for many years didn't even understand it, well, you're in the right place. That's why we're here today, to talk about what the heck is an RIA or asset classes or ETFs or all the things, because I believe it is so important for women to really have a keen understanding about investments and to have open discussions about money, something that many are afraid to actually talk about. So let's dive into this. So with great pride and without much further ado, welcome my husband, Scott. I'm so grateful you're here. Thank you for saying yes to doing this.
Well, thank you very much, Terri, for that elongated bio. So basically, I'm a professional wealth manager that manages investment capital for successful individuals. And I also teach beginning investors to unlock financial freedom and profit in any economy through my live online 6-week Investing Simplified class.
Awesome. So you are the first guy that's ever been on this podcast.
Should I be nervous?
No. And to be fair, we've talked about doing this before. You get a special pass because I'm married to you, but this really is a podcast for women, about women. But because of your background, women have so much fear about money. We're living longer. What do we do with it? How do we invest? All these different things. And so today we're going to dive in and actually talk about your upcoming course that you have called Investing Simplified. And before we dive into that, we each have our own businesses. We work under the same roof, drive each other crazy sometimes. And I'm just excited to have you here because I have my business, you have your business, and then we have ours together, which is me helping you with Investing Simplified. So you are the front-facing person for this. You are the one with all the knowledge of the investment and the teaching, and I do all the back end. I help with all the tech. I help build your sales pages, do social media, your slides, and I ask all the very clarifying and qualifying questions, especially when you go off and start speaking in your investing jargon. So let's just dive in and talk about that. Thanks for kind of sharing kind of who you are. You really You really have so much experience. I mean, when I think about 38 years, it's a lot. You have so much knowledge, and I think so many people feel really uncertain about where we are right now, right? I mean, you have really done a great job kind of sharing and helping people feel a little bit less afraid. Would you agree?
Yeah, I very much agree, honey. And going back to a couple of your earlier comments, regarding women in investing. So I've been in this business a long time, and so I've had, very elderly clients that have been with me for decades to very young age clients. And so I've had a lot of situations where the husband dies and the wife doesn't know anything about the accounts or passwords or any of that stuff. And so we live in a different age. And so even if you've been married a long time, I think it's very vital for both the woman and the man to have a basic understanding of finance and investing, because no one will look after your money more than you do or should, including a trusted advisor that you may employ.
And I think that's a really good point, Scott, because one of the things you talk about in this class that I think is super, super, super powerful is your mindset around money. And that's one of the things I think your first module and things you talk about in your first class is our mindset. And even for me, growing up in an entrepreneurial family, money was a big secret. We didn't talk about it a lot. It was always kept, hush hush. Even when I helped my mom with her businesses and things, it was never really, really open dialogue. And you and I have had some of our own conflict. I mean, I took for granted a lot of times the things that you did and what you did for a living, didn't even really fully understand the language because it's intimidating for a lot of people. And I think when you send out a survey, that's the number one thing people even say is it's overwhelming. There's so many terms. I don't even know how to speak to my advisor. Would you agree?
Don't know where to start. Very, very much agree. And so that's just super important to, start with a foundation. And so you're right. My first class is about money mindset. And so it's a very interesting topic because our mindset and basically how we've been raised really influences how we look at money. And so I've had people in my class that grew up where their parents didn't have two nickels to rub together, which created a poverty mindset for some of my class members. Then I've had people that grew up in very wealthy households, including one individual that finally had to tell his parents at age 30, stop sending me that big check every month. It's stunning my growth, professional growth. And so, that was quite a revelation. And so my first module, again, about money mindset, what I'm really trying to get across is all of this is learnable. And so I've taken my decades of experience and really, really simplified it, okay? And concentrated on the most basic fundamentals of how to make money in any economy, whether the market is going down or up, which really differentiates me from a lot of advisors. To take out all the white noise and just focus on those aspects that can help you build your own diversified portfolio and to make money in any economy.
So with this course, Scott, I'd like to kind of go through maybe some of what some of the things that you do teach. But first, before we do that, kind of share a little bit about what made you decide to actually do this course, because you have invested, you have kind of two roles. You invest for people that don't want to do it themselves. That's your primary role. You have these clients that you actually invest for, which you've done all these years. And then during COVID, you decided that you really wanted to help others start. And so share a little bit about how that kind of started, why you wanted to help people.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting story and an aha moment. I think a lot of us had breakthroughs during COVID. And so, again, I've been in this business a long time. And, after, 5-6 years in the business, I really started gravitating towards the ultra high net worth investor. And then got to a point where I worked for several firms where you had to have a minimum account of $25 million investable cash to even open an account with us. And so I worked in that sector for many years. And so during COVID, and the fact that Terry and I have 4 adult children, millennials and Gen Z, I just had this idea of, as a Christian, God, is this what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life, helping the ultra high net worth individual and their families and their endowments and their foundations get even wealthier? Or should I take all of my knowledge and help the average person or just the beginner in general that may, not have much money together? Maybe they, can start with a couple of $100s. And so I know that I can move the needle for them and make a dramatic impact in their life. And so that was kind of my aha moment. And then on the client side, I dropped my minimum down, way down from the 25 million. And I still work with affluent, successful investors and their families. But again, you can utilize my services in 2 different ways, through actually opening an account with me, or then obviously taking my Investing Simplified class.
And I think one of the things, especially for women, just learning the language too. If somebody does have an investor or an advisor that they've worked with, just being able to understand the language so that they can communicate and have a better understanding of how their money is working for them, where it's going, how to save, not just stick it in a savings account, but really have a keen understanding. And I think particularly our age demographic, and like you said, even a little bit older, people, especially women, I hate to be gender specific, but it's true that women have really relied on their husbands, and I did that for a while. So I think that this is really a very, very important class on just so many levels, to be able to communicate with an advisor, to really be able to understand what your money is doing for you, how to let it work for you, especially in this economy and where we are right now. And it's been a blast for me to do this, because all these years you're just excited that you can turn on Bloomberg TV and I can understand exactly what's going on. So really fun. So I thank you for sharing that. So tell a little bit about, this is a live 6-week course that we do. I'm there, I'm in the chat, I'm asking lots of questions. It's a very open forum. You do teach, but then it's a very open forum. So share a little bit about just what those different modules and different weeks are.
It's funny, you talk about financial jargon, and so whatever industry or sector that we work in, we all have our own language. And, Terry and I have been married for 35 years, and so she's heard me talk about that. She's actually my ideal client, even after 35 years, before she started really helping me with these classes, she would often ask me, what is this term? What is that term? Even after all of this time. And so I think I'm on my 5th round of classes now. It's really interesting. In one of my previous classes, not everyone can make the live classes, so all classes are recorded. And a millennial was not able to make a lot of my live classes, and she would start to text me while she was watching the recording. And finally, I hopped on a Zoom call with her one-on-one, and she told this story that really affected me. And basically, she said, Scott, I'm so glad that I, have the recorded class, because I would have been so frustrated during the live class, because you use so many terms that I had to stop and Google it or look it up on Investopedia to see what you were talking about. Now, that was kind of alarming to me, because one of my handouts is a 4 to 5 page thing with the most common terms. So I thought that I had talked to my audience about this. Well, she ended up sending me a book on investing, especially for millennials, and one of the chapters was on investment terms. Now, that whole chapter was about 16 pages of terms, so that kind of was like a light bulb, that went off, that, when someone says, I don't even know what a stock market is, then I really have to, do that. Now, over the series of classes, I will say that each class has become more simplified, less jargon. I'm much more cognizant of using jargon. Terri does a wonderful job in the chat if I use a term that is not widely understood, of explaining it to the class. And so I really have simplified. My first class was 8 live classes. Now it's 6, and I really just focus on the fundamentals and basically how to create future wealth without fear of loss, costly mistakes, or overwhelm, and to make money in any economy, which, by the way, is very important with everything that's going on in this world today. You've got to start to learn how to make your money work just as hard for you as you work for it. And given inflation, which just eats away at your purchasing power, most people think about inflation as the cost of goods going up. Really what it's about is your dollar being able to purchase less.
That's great. And one of the things that you do in this, you go from the beginning, like really talking about the money mindset, to one of the classes towards the end is actually getting people to set up their own account if they don't have one already. You do this through Schwab, and you really help people go from point A to point B and walk them through setting it up.
So, my class is more than just theory and terms and execution. I assign homework after every class. Not a lot of homework. It won't take you much time. But by class number 6, you've opened your own account, whether if you've never had one before. In class 6, you're making your first trades. Typically, either through Schwab or Fidelity, your choice, or any other platform that you are familiar with. So Terri talked about earlier about the first class was about money mindset. Class number 2 is about, navigating the investment landscape, what's out there, what you focus on. Okay. Class number 3 is about getting started with investing. Everyone talks about asset classes, so I go into a little bit about that. I talk about 6 different asset classes, what they are, when to invest in them, when not to invest in them, and what is the easiest way to access them. Class number 4 is about risk and reward. Each of us, has a different reward and risk parameters. I often say that I could do a great job for clients, through thick and thin in the markets. But if that client's waking up in the middle of the night because of some geopolitical event that may or may not affect their account, then we're taking too much risk in their account. So I have very conservative investors to very aggressive growth investors. Class 5 is basically crafting your own personalized investment strategy. And class 6 is putting it all together, starting your path to financial freedom.
Yeah, and it's really great. And I think the other thing that's really great too is that you're really there to answer the questions. You are very, very patient. You have had a lot of women take your class. I think it's probably been 50-50, but there are a lot of women that have taken your class, which I love seeing, and a wide variety of ages. I love seeing the younger kids come in, younger adults do this, because I think starting out, I wish I had more of this knowledge starting out. I think it's really, really important. And I think you do a really, really great job explaining all of this, each class step by step, walking everybody through this. And
well, thanks. A lot of it is influenced, by our 4 adult children. And so one of the things I'm really passionate about is influencing the next generation. And so there's just so much bad advice out there today. It's just amazing to me. Finding a person of integrity or actually has the experience in both up markets and down markets and trying to simplify things is, very vital. So my classes have included, it's for beginners and novices. So I've had people, that have no idea that to get started investing, but know they need to people with a little bit of experience and maybe an account. So my class is for beginners, And I've had people in the class from as young as 15 years old all the way up to 62.
Yeah. And you've had some people that, like you said, that have no idea whatsoever, haven't really even heard a lot of the terms, that really want to start out investing. And then you've had people that are a little bit more seasoned, that just kind of want to take control of their own investments and be able to do it themselves. You teach people how to do it very simply. You have a strategy that you teach them. And once they're part of your group, then they can also join your monthly membership, where you actually continue to teach and guide and walk people through this. And it's all very affordable. I will put all of that here in the show notes where people can get this link. This class for the 6 weeks is $497.
$497. And so one of the things that I also teach is you'll never save your way to wealth. Okay, you can only invest your way to wealth, utilizing time and compound interest, which is the seventh wonder of the world, according to Warren Buffett. And so the important thing, is just to get started. And so the thing about my class is, by week 6, you will have your account, and you'll have confidence and clarity of what to do. And so I teach something different than most advisors, which has worked very successful for me, in the fact that, I'm not a believer in buy and hold and holding on to different securities or stocks forever. I call that buy and hope. And, hope is not a good investment strategy. And so if you take periods like 01, 02, the dot-com, the 08, 09 debacle, even 2022, where the markets are going down 20 to 50%. Sometimes that takes 9 years to get back to even. And so how do you prevent your capital in down markets? And so I teach a lot about that. And so it's one of the things that Wall Street just doesn't do. Advisors get paid on how much assets they control, okay, the fees that they generate for them, and of course they want you to buy and hold through everything. Meanwhile, their own firms are trading like crazy, especially in down markets.
Yeah. So, I'm excited. I love doing this. It's been really fun for me. So all of you listening in, you'll get me too. We do this together. I mean, Scott's obviously the front person here. This is his knowledge and his business. I do the backside, but I think the part that I really love doing is just helping people feel comfortable and not being embarrassed to ask any question. I mean, that's the whole point of this, is to give everybody a really keen understanding about money, not to be afraid to talk about money, and to learn to be comfortable talking about it, learn to be comfortable having this conversation. And so no matter where they are, even in, I think even like you've done a great job, even, teaching our kids how to negotiate their salaries and things like that. Money is just a topic that for some reason we just don't seem to talk about. And it's a very, very important topic. And I've learned the hard way. And
Well, let me tell you this. As someone who's spent a lot of time in the ultra high net worth environment, the very wealthy stay wealthy and get wealthier because they talk to each other.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, you want to buy this type of car? Call my guy. You want this kind of jet? Call my guy. And so they're willing to be in proximity to each other and get each other's best practices, and avail themselves of people that know what they're doing in specialized sectors. As Terri said, she grew up in an environment where you just didn't talk about money, and so that is very prevalent still today. Yeah. So her parents, her grandparents, and even some of the younger generation, a lot of it has to do with the mindset. Terri is often shocked when she hears me on phone calls asking very detailed financial questions to brand new people that have become clients. But that's what I do, and if I'm going to guide people, I want to know the story and try to uncover any pitfalls that they may have.
I think that's really great. And also, I mean, for women, particularly listening in, that might be an entrepreneur already, they have, they're growing a business or have a business. just trying to, this is important to have this language to really understand as their business grows, where to invest it, how, you don't do tax strategy. That's not something that you, although you have an incredible amount of knowledge
I know
with
a
it.
lot about tax things, but, I have, depending on the complexity of your business, LLC, S Corp, or a C Corp, I have the people that I work with that I can always help people if they have complex, situations. But just little things such as I've helped lots of people just in the last 3 to 4 months that had their money at a bank or even at their brokerage firm that was sitting in the money market yielding anywhere from 0.1% to 0.5% to access certain types of money market funds that are paying over 4%. So that's like an $8,000% increase. And again, that's money market, dollar in, dollar out, no risk to principal.
Yeah. And the other thing I think that's really great too, you've had husbands and wives, I think, take these classes. You've also had, like, generationally, like, parents that are really helping their young adults invest and teaching them about it. And so I just think for me, being on this side of it now, it's just really fun just to see that, just to have the conversation, a very healthy conversation about money, because money, even when you're getting married and in your marriage, can be a very, very divisive topic. And I think the healthier conversations that we have about it, the healthier mindsets that we have around it, the healthier we are. And you and I are involved in a really powerful class right now. And just even the other day, hearing the dialogue on Zoom talking about money it's empowering and enlightening and encouraging. I think the more conversations that we have, the more of a legacy we're able to pass on to the kids, people that we love, and to make a difference in the world.
Yeah, and one of the things that I teach in the first class of money mindset is understanding your why. Why do you want to learn to invest? And so I take you through this exercise. Terri and I take you through this exercise where we go deeper. And so understanding your why, the first couple of answers that typically people give me are in their head. And so we got to get to your why, which really, typically comes from your heart, to control your calendar. Money at the end of the day gives you choices and freedom. And so I feel very, strongly about that. And again, I'm always, with this class, tried to make it super affordable for people and try to get them to believe you don't have to be a math whiz or have an MBA to do this. I've really broken it down very simply, hence the name Investing Simplified. And, if you go take a class at a local college or community college, is certainly going to cost a lot more than what my class is, and I doubt that the professor is going to have as much knowledge, practical knowledge, as I do. So again, I'm really focused on creating a new generation of investors and helping that beginning investor.
I love that. And I think that just made me think about one of the posts that you just did recently about, this is everything you should have learned in high school and college. So
you mean the post that you wrote?
The post that I wrote. It's so true. Like, this is everything that we should be talking about and empowering our children with, and no matter where you are, like Scott said, he said every age from 15 all the way up to someone in their 60s. And I personally think that someone should be at least 18 and in high school. I think starting college or in college. If someone that's in high school, I think that's kind of an outlier.
Yeah, but unless, for the example, the 15-year-old that was in our class, he'd already done a bunch of, studies on investing. He liked, some math. He, wasn't your typical, high school student by any stretch of the imagination. So,
Yeah, so I agree. I think that's really good. Is there anything else you want to share? I just wanted to dive in and do this. I mean, both of our plates are pretty full, and I wanted to share kind of the backside too of kind of what I do to help you do this. It's and it's fun. It's fun kind of growing these businesses together. It's a lot, but it's also fun. And I just want to encourage women that are listening in, no matter where you are. This is just a really fun and I think really important topic to talk about, and don't want anybody to ever feel intimidated. I think you provide a really wonderful safe space for people to talk about this and have this conversation. And I love doing it.
I just want to call out, how proud I am of you, Terri. So, and just to see how behind the scenes and how much technology, that you've learned in the last 3 years. And so it's, quite amazing. And so you've really helped, our business. Terri obviously has gotten really good at negotiating. She came to me, several months ago and negotiated a 50% interest in my investing, the Simplified the business. And so, which I was certainly, happy to give her. The other thing I just want to touch on, again, I don't care if you are younger or older, as long as you're a beginner or novice, and whether you have $100 to invest or much more. I have in one of my previous classes, I had a individual that had a $700,000 account that took my class. In working with him and going through the things, he was way, not very diversified, and the position sizes they had were all out of whack. And now he feels much better about doing these. He actually texts me regularly now about his successes, in the market. And so just to see his excitement in, as an affluent investor, made me feel good that I'm not only providing value for the absolute beginner, but the people that have some experience too.
Yeah,
so,
and that's why I wanted to shed some light onto that it doesn't matter if you're just in the very beginning or if you actually just want to be more involved, have a better understanding, and be in charge of your money more. So it's important.
I'm definitely using the language for the beginner in the class rather than for that $700,000 client.
I would agree. All right. Is there anything else you want to say?
Remember, money never sleeps, and there's always a bull market somewhere. So my job is to help you find it. So thanks so much for having me on the podcast today, Terri. I don't know if you'll ever invite me back, but it was fun.
Thank you. And just a side note, what's so funny is that Scott's never even listened to my podcast, which is fine because he is not my ideal client, but I'm definitely his. So thank you all for listening in. I hope you have a few key takeaways. Everything will be here in the show notes. If you have any questions, please reach out. You can DM me on Facebook, and you can also reach out and DM Scott, but I'll put all the links here in the show notes for you.
Hold on. It's not that I don't have any interest in what you do. I just find the format of podcasting a little bit more difficult because I'm such a fast reader that, if I'm going to listen to a podcast or YouTube, it's at least on 1.5 speed, which I know drives you nuts. So it's not a personal affront on you. I know you provide a lot of value for entrepreneurial women. And by the way, the last time I checked, I'm not an entrepreneurial woman, so that's why I don't really spend a lot of time on your podcast episodes.
I'm not offended. It's all good. All right. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everyone, for listening in. Have an amazing day. Until we meet again, know that you are seen, you are heard, you are loved, you are valued, and you belong. Keep stepping forward. God bless. Well, thank you so much for being here today. I hope you have a few key takeaways that you can apply to your life. And if you'd be so kind to leave me a review, that'd be awesome. It lets other women know that we're making a difference, and it empowers them and helps them step forward as well. Until we meet again, keep stepping forward.